Learn all about how we can help May the 4th be with you this week on Data Exposed. Hi, I'm Princess Anna, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed May the 4th Be With You edition. Today, I'm joined by Obi-Wan Kenobi and Grogu. Thanks so much for joining us today, folks.
Hi, Princess Anna.
Hi.
And today we're going to be talking about high availability for SQL Server on Azure virtual machines. This is a super important, serious topic, especially when it comes to Star Wars. So, Obi-Wan Kenobi, can you tell us a little bit about the importance and how high availability in SQL Server and Azure VM works?
Sure, absolutely. I would love to. But first, super top secret, our data centers right there. Just don't tell anybody.
Okay.
I'm on Tatooine. I'm visiting the data center. Just don't tell anybody. So, but when we talk about high availability in SQL, a lot of the discussion is around SQL Server itself. But if we want to store our top secret battle plans, we have to make sure that the virtual machine itself underneath SQL also has some level of high availability, because if we don't, bad things can happen and the Empire could destroy all of our rebel bases. So that would be very, very bad. In order to do that, we have a couple options with Azure. So how do we provide high availability for the virtual machine level itself? Obviously, with SQL Server, we could do availability groups. We have a couple different things. One of the big things is that SQL Server is stateful by nature, meaning it's not like a web server. And so doing high availability is a little bit more tricky, and we have a little bit less options than doing something like high availability with a web server. Namely, we have what are called availability sets and availability zones. And these are two different things, and they do different things for high availability. Availability sets is really about high availability across racks in the data center itself. So here we can see I've got a couple different racks. I got 3 racks, and in these racks, we have what are called fault domains and update domains. And you'll notice that the fault domains are spanned across the racks, meaning each rack has independent power, independent networking. So if the entire rack goes down, it doesn't affect the other fault domains. And then we also have what are called update domains. And these are used for when Microsoft needs to update the infrastructure, the actual virtual machine itself. We can specify which update domain to put the virtual machines. So that way, Microsoft only touches one update domain at a time. And so we get high availability by using availability sets. And with both fault and update domains, you can have 3 fault domains, but only 20 update domains. So you've got a kind of wide range of solutions that you can put in place with availability sets. Now, availability zones is more about spanning data centers themselves within the region. So here we can see we have 3 zones within a given region, and each zone has independent power, independent cooling, independent networking. So if we lose let's say we lose zone 1, zone 2 and 3 would remain online. They're also pretty far apart, anywhere from 100 to 150 miles minimum apart from each other. And they guarantee, they're supposed to have really small latency values, less than 2 milliseconds round trip. So we still can take advantage of that enormous backbone that Microsoft has between the zones. Now, just one caveat, not all of the regions have zones. So if you want to look at high availability with availability zones, you have to make sure that you're in the right region. So do your due diligence, go find the right region before you implement availability zones. But even with availability groups in SQL, we still want to put those virtual machines themselves in the different zones.
Got
So
it.
let's go ahead.
Can I ask a quick question, Obi-Wan Kenobi? And that is, like you mentioned SQL Server availability is different from your VM availability. Like, is it some combo that I want of availability zones, sets, and groups, or are these totally separate? I need them all, or what's your advice?
Great question. So the answer is yes. You're going to want some level of combination of the two. Typically, the best practice is to use availability zones if they are there, because we've now separated each replica of the availability group by distance And so that way we've isolated each replica away from like a natural disaster, say a tornado. A very large tornado just went through Nebraska, Iowa a couple days ago. They could take out one of the zones, but the other zone still has resiliency within that given region. If you are in a region that you can't do availability zones, then you fall back to availability sets just to at least provide high availability across the racks, as well as the updates. But great question. Yes. We want to make sure that the virtual machine that's housing our top secret battle plans has high availability at all levels as much as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you were going to show us how it works. Would love to take a look.
So I was going to just flip over real quick. This is the Azure portal. As you can see, I've already got a resource group with Star Wars. I'm going to create a virtual machine called Top Secret Battle Plans. And if I wanted to select availability zones, I can just very easily select which zone I want to pin that virtual machine to. In this case, I want to just create one. If I was doing something like an availability group, I would want to put one replica, one node in zone 1, put another one in zone 2, and if I have a 3-node replica, put one in zone 3. With availability sets, we have to create the set and define those fault domains and update domains. And it's pretty simple to do. You just click create and you specify your configuration. And then just like zones, you would put it in whatever fault and update domain you want. Just make sure you don't overlap things. Other than that, that's pretty easy to do.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. It seems pretty straightforward to set up, especially if you think about the olden times of setting this up, and then we can protect ourselves against, in our case, like attacks on our data centers or zones. We also have Grogu here with us, who is the PM leader for SQL Server and Azure VMs. Grogu, any other things you want to call out that might help folks with setting up high availability?
Use the Force, Princess Anna. Use the Force, also known as the high availability checkbox. This is a magic checkbox. Yes, a magic checkbox where we do everything for you.
Awesome.
This checkbox is amazing.
What does it do, Grogu?
So when you click create here, this magic checkbox allows you to deploy multiple virtual machines at the same time in the same deployment. You can deploy them across availability zones, as was just recommended, and it will automatically create a multi-subnet availability group that spans all the VMs. And you can deploy 2 VMs up to 9 VMs, and they will automatically have replicas spread across them in separate availability zones, and it is using the multi-subnet technology. So
that's awesome.
All you have to do is fill in a few blanks in the deployment, and we will deploy all of this for you, and you can have magic high availability with just a few clicks.
Awesome.
It makes it so simple and easy.
So thanks so much for joining us, Grogu and Obi-Wan Kenobi. As always, I learned a ton on May 4th about Azure SQL and Star Wars. If you like this episode, go ahead and give it a like, leave us a comment, and let us know your favorite pun that we can use next year in the May the 4th episode. And we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.